In today's episode, dear Shadow Explorers, welcome back to Midnight Mysteries. I'm Raven Shadowmere, and today we'll dive into a story that will send chills down your spine. Imagine a small town where the air is thick with secrets, and the trees whisper warnings to the unsuspecting. Silver Creek, a seemingly idyllic place, hides a terror that defies human understanding. The year is 2010, and two young newcomers are about to unleash forces beyond their comprehension. Lucas and Chloe, innocent in their curiosity, have no idea of the horror awaiting them at the infamous Devil's Bridge. But beware, my dear listeners, this is not just a simple ghost story. What happens when the line between our world and the beyond is crossed? What dark secrets does little Silver Creek hold in its silent streets and shadowy forests? Prepare for a terrifying journey where reality unfolds like a nightmare, and the past resurfaces to claim its price. The legend of the Devil's Bridge is not for the faint of heart. And remember, Shadow Explorers, sometimes looking back can cost you more than just your sanity. It can cost you your very existence. Before we plunge into this abyss of terror, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. After all, you don't want to miss the next episode. Or maybe it's better if you do. Now, dim the lights, lock the doors, and prepare to face the legend of the Devil's Bridge. As we entered the small town of Silver Creek, an odd sensation enveloped me. The atmosphere was dense, almost palpable, as if the trees lining the road held ancient secrets. I glanced at Chloe, who was sitting beside me in the car, her eyes sparkling with excitement and curiosity. "Look at this, Lucas. It's so beautiful," she exclaimed, admiring the wooden houses and the colorful leaves dancing in the wind. It was a typical small-town setting, but there was something in the air that made me uneasy. We were there because our parents had moved to Silver Creek in search of a quieter life. I, on the other hand, wasn't feeling too thrilled. New beginnings were often daunting, and I was still getting used to the idea of leaving my friends and the city school behind. As we drove along, I couldn't help but notice how people looked at us. Some smiled, while others just watched us with curiosity, as if we were creatures from another world. Once we arrived at our new home, a creaky old wooden house with a porch, Chloe was radiant. "Let's explore. I bet we can find something interesting around here." She was always ready for adventure, while I preferred a bit more tranquility. But, as always, I ended up agreeing. We set off to wander through the town, and soon came across a group of teenagers in the town square. The vibe was relaxed, but there was a buzz that caught our attention. "Hey, you guys are new here, right?" One of the boys with messy hair and a mischievous grin approached us. "Have you heard about the Devil's Bridge?" Chloe, with her curious nature, immediately asked. "Devil's Bridge? What's that?" The boy glanced around as if he was about to reveal a secret. "It's a legend in town. They say anyone who crosses the bridge at midnight and looks back is never seen again. Some people claim they've heard whispers in the air. It's serious, man. There was a girl who disappeared a few years ago. She was never found." I laughed, trying to ease the tension that was forming. "Oh, that's just a story to scare kids. It can't be real." But despite my words, an uncomfortable feeling began to churn in my stomach. Chloe, however, seemed fascinated. "I want to see that bridge. Let's go there tonight." "Calm down, Chloe. We don't need to go looking for ghosts," I protested. But it was in vain. The sparkle in her eyes was contagious, and the idea of exploring something mysterious started to draw me in too. After a few hours of exploring the town, we decided to head back home. As we walked, the conversation about the Devil's Bridge still lingered in the air. "Do you really think someone disappeared because of that?" Chloe asked, her voice filled with curiosity. "I don't know, maybe it was just a coincidence," I replied, but deep down, something told me there was more to that story. Anyway, let's not get carried away with these legends. We arrived home, and while our parents settled in, Chloe pulled me aside. "Lucas, let's go on an expedition to the bridge. Just the two of us. We don't need to tell anyone. I want to see if it's true." I sighed, knowing I wouldn't be able to convince her to back down. "Okay, but we need to be careful. I don't want anything to happen to us." Night fell, and the town was gearing up for Halloween. Orange and purple lights flickered in the windows, and laughter echoed down the street. But amidst all the festivities, a sense of mystery and apprehension settled over me. As we prepared for our expedition, I couldn't help but wonder what we might actually find at the Devil's Bridge. Chloe was so eager, almost electric, and I questioned whether this adventure would merely prove there was nothing to fear, or if, perhaps, we were about to awaken something better left asleep. The thick fog seemed to swallow the Devil's Bridge as Lucas and Chloe approached, their lanterns flickering in their hands, as if sensing that something was about to happen. A supernatural chill enveloped them, causing Lucas's skin to prickle. He exchanged a nervous glance with Chloe, who was trying to mask her anxiety with a nervous smile. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the fog. "Of course, we just need to cross the bridge and come back. It's no big deal," she replied. But Lucas sensed the hesitation in her tone. He knew deep down they were both uneasy. With a deep breath, they began to cross the bridge. The sound of their boots striking the wood echoed oddly, as if the bridge itself was complaining about the weight of their presence. With each step, Lucas felt the chill at the nape of his neck intensify, as if someone were watching. He tried to focus on the task at hand, but the heavy, oppressive atmosphere made everything more difficult. "Lucas, did you hear that?" Chloe interrupted his thoughts, her gaze fixed on something behind them. He stopped, gripping the lantern tighter. "Hear what?" he asked, trying to remain calm. A whisper like someone was talking. "But I can't understand it." Chloe's expression was a mix of curiosity and fear. "It's probably just the wind. Let's keep going." He forced a smile. But the truth was that he had also felt something strange. A whisper that seemed to echo in his mind. But he convinced himself it was just his imagination playing tricks. As they advanced, the bridge seemed to stretch infinitely. The air was heavy, and the silence was suffocating, except for the sound of their racing hearts. When they reached the middle of the bridge, Lucas hesitated. "What if we looked back, just to see if there's really nothing?" Chloe hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Just a quick look." They turned slowly, and what they saw left them paralyzed. A shadow moved swiftly among the trees at the riverbank, indistinct, but clearly present. Lucas felt the blood drain from his face. "Chloe, let's go back now," he shouted, his voice slicing through the silence like a knife. "But what if it's just a tree or an animal?" she questioned. But Lucas was already pulling her away. However, as they began to retreat, Lucas noticed the bridge seemed to stretch even more, as if distorting in response to their fear. The environment around them appeared to change, and the mist grew thicker, obscuring their vision and making everything more surreal. "What's happening?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Chloe replied, her panic now evident. "The bridge is different. We need to run," Lucas yelled, and they started to move forward. But the feeling that they were trapped in a nightmare only intensified. With each step, the bridge seemed to elongate, as if rebelling against them. When they finally reached the end of the bridge, Lucas turned to take one last look back. The shadow was closer now, a shapeless form that seemed to twist and change. He felt an urge to run, but Chloe was still by his side, staring intently at what had now become a threatening presence. "Lucas, what is that?" Chloe whispered, her voice barely a tremor. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable. "Let's get out of here," he shouted, pulling her. But the bridge seemed to have a mind of its own, holding them in a state of uncertainty. "We can't stay here. We need to go," Lucas exclaimed, feeling a wave of rising panic. The shadow appeared to be closing in, and he turned to pull Chloe along. But what they saw next made his heart stop. The mist thickened, and the line between reality and nightmare began to blur. "Lucas, what's happening?" Chloe asked, her voice echoing a mix of terror and despair. "I don't know, but we need to leave now." He felt the bridge shifting, and the sensation of being watched intensified. With one last look at the shadow, which now seemed to writhe with an almost palpable malice, they began to run. Time seemed to drag, and the bridge appeared to stretch endlessly, like a labyrinth with no exit, as the mist enveloped them, and the darkness deepened around them. We arrived home, still trembling from the experience we had just lived. As soon as I entered my room, a strange sensation enveloped me. The place felt darker, as if the moonlight was hiding behind heavy clouds. I looked around and noticed that some things were out of place. My science book was lying on the floor, and the chair was turned, as if someone had been there, waiting for us. "Chloe, did you see this?" I called, trying to keep my voice steady, but unease began to creep up my body. She entered right behind me, her eyes wide. I didn't leave the chair like that, Lucas. Don't you think someone came in here?" she asked, her voice trembling. No one could have come in without us noticing. I don't know. I feel like something is different." The truth was, I was scared. Whatever we had awakened on the bridge seemed to have followed us. I tried to ignore the heavy feeling and went to bed. However, as soon as I lay down, closed my eyes, and the images of the bridge began to invade my mind. Whispers, shadows, the feeling of being watched. The nightmare began to take shape, and I couldn't help but let anxiety consume me. The next day, the sun shone brightly, but the heavy feeling from the previous night still lingered over us. Chloe had dark circles under her eyes, and I knew she had also had a rough night. We decided to go to school, even though the rumors about the Devil's Bridge were only getting worse. On the way, we ran into Henry, one of the local residents who always seemed to be watching things from a distance. "Hey, Henry," I greeted him, trying to hide my nervousness. He looked at us with concern. "Hey, Lucas, Chloe, you went to the bridge, didn't you?" he asked, causing my stomach to churn. How could he know? "Yeah, but it was just an adventure. No one believes in that legend, right?" Chloe said, trying to sound confident. Henry shook his head. "It's not just a story. I've heard the whispers. Several of my friends disappeared after crossing the bridge at midnight." "What did you feel?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. We heard whispers too. It was strange, like someone was talking to us," I admitted, feeling a chill run down my spine. Henry stepped closer, looking around before continuing. "The legend says that the bridge is a passage, a barrier between the world of the living and the lost. If you looked back, it may have drawn the attention of something that shouldn't be here." Chloe and I exchanged nervous glances. What he was saying was terrifying. "And what should we do now?" I asked, my voice nearly faltering. "You need to understand the origin of the curse. I can help, but it won't be easy. The bridge is not just a structure of wood. It's an entity in itself. If the legend is true, you must figure out how to break the curse before it's too late." "Are you serious?" Chloe asked, clearly scared but also intrigued. "Yes, very serious. I don't want you to end up like those who disappeared. Let's meet later tonight. We need more information." He looked at us with an air of determination. After saying goodbye to Henry, we decided to spend the rest of the day trying to act normally. But the cloud of uncertainty wouldn't leave our minds. School felt like a maze of laughter and chatter, but everything around us seemed distant. When night fell, a sense of inevitability hung in the air. I looked at Chloe, who was sitting on the bed, her gaze lost. "Do you think we should do this? Meet Henry again?" I asked, nervous. "We need to, Lucas. If there's any chance to understand what's happening, we need to know. I don't want to lose you." The tone of her voice made my heart ache. With a determined nod, we left the house. The atmosphere felt heavy, and the darkness seemed deeper as we walked. In our hearts, a mix of fear and curiosity pushed us toward the unknown. What else could the Devil's Bridge reveal to us? The Silver Creek Library had a peculiar smell, a mix of aged paper and dampness, making me feel as if each book held forgotten secrets of time. Alongside Chloe and Henry, I rummaged through the shelves in search of something that could help us understand the curse of the Devil's Bridge. The environment was silent, except for the soft rustling of the pages we turned. "This one looks old," Chloe commented, pulling a dusty diary from a high shelf. The title was nearly illegible, but a strange sensation washed over me as I saw it. "It seems like no one has touched this in years," I added as she carefully opened the cover, as if fearing to damage the pages. The diary belonged to one of Silver Creek's earliest residents, a man named Samuel Thorne. The early pages contained notes about daily life in the town, but soon they turned darker. Samuel described rituals held by the bridge, invoking an entity he referred to as the devil. The words seemed to vibrate with negative energy, and a chill ran through my body as I read. "Look at this," Henry said, pointing to a passage that spoke of the consequences of crossing the bridge at midnight. He mentions that those who looked back became part of the bridge's shadow, doomed to wander eternally. His voice trembled, and I could see the concern in his eyes. Chloe, still holding the diary, whispered, "But this can't be true, right? It's just an old story to scare children." However, her doubt sounded hesitant, as if the heavy atmosphere of the library was affecting her too. As we flipped through the pages, the library's lights began to flicker, and a sinister laughter echoed from somewhere deep and dark. The sound seemed to come from all around us, and the temperature in the room plummeted. My hands involuntarily clenched into fists. "I think we should get out of here," I suggested, trying to maintain my calm. Henry quickly agreed. "Yes, let's go. This isn't good." We barely managed to close the diary and get up when the library door slammed shut, as if an invisible force was trying to keep us inside. The laughter intensified, and I felt a growing panic. "This isn't normal," Chloe screamed, pulling on the doorknob, but the door wouldn't budge. The laughter morphed into distorted screams, and I could sense the devil's presence closing in. "The bridge! We need to get to the bridge!" I shouted, adrenaline coursing through me. With a sudden burst, Henry threw himself against the door, and to our surprise, it swung open with a bang. We rushed outside, breathless, and huddled in a small safe space in front of the library. The air was thick, and mist began to form again, enveloping everything around us. "We need to figure out how to stop this," Henry said, his voice heavy with determination. "Samuel wrote about a ritual that could break the curse, but we need to be brave enough to perform it on the bridge." "You read that?" I asked, trying to remember if there was any description that would give us a clue. Chloe looked at me, her eyes shining with both fear and courage. "Yes," Henry confirmed, "but I'm not sure we have time. The presence is getting closer." "Then let's go," Chloe replied, her determination growing. "We can't let this defeat us." The path to the bridge felt longer than ever. As we walked, the sinister laughter still echoed in our heads, as if the town itself was mocking us. My thoughts raced about what might happen if we failed to break the curse. What would become of this town if more souls were lost? When we reached the edge of the bridge, the mist was denser than before, almost as if the bridge itself was breathing. Fear seeped into every step we took, but Chloe and Henry's determination gave me strength. "We're in this together," I said, trying to convey courage. "Let's end this." Henry nodded, and together we began to prepare for the ritual, whatever that meant. The tension rose as we realized the battle was far from over, and the true confrontation was still to come. With my heart racing, I, Lucas, felt a mix of fear and determination as we walked toward the Devil's Bridge. For the last time, Chloe was by my side, her expression reflecting the same anxiety I felt. Henry, our unexpected ally, led the way, holding a yellowed piece of paper he had found in the library diary. The ritual we needed to perform was written there, and each word was a promise of hope amid despair. "Are you ready for this, Lucas?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, but we have to try. We can't let that thing win, I replied, trying to convince myself as much as her. I looked at Henry, who seemed lost in his thoughts. We need to hurry, he said, his deep voice cutting through the night's silence. The energy of the bridge is shifting. We don't have much time. When we arrived at the bridge, the mist was thicker than ever, wrapped in a silence that was almost deafening. Each step we took echoed like a warning. The atmosphere was charged, and a shiver ran down my spine as I realized the malevolent presence was watching us. Let's begin, Henry commanded, drawing a circle on the ground with a stone he had found. Chloe, stay by my side. Lucas, you need to stand at the opposite end. We have to unite. I agreed, but the tension was palpable. As we positioned ourselves, Henry began to recite the words of the ritual. With each syllable, I felt the bridge vibrate beneath our feet. The mist started to swirl, forming strange and distorted shapes. An intense chill enveloped us, and a sense of dread washed over me. Look, what is that? Chloe shouted, pointing at the far end of the bridge. A shadowy figure appeared, almost as if it had emerged from the darkness itself. Its smile was malevolent, and I could feel the malice in its presence. You think you can defeat me? You're only prolonging the inevitable, the entity laughed, its voice echoing in the darkness. No, we won't let you win, I shouted, trying to maintain my courage. Henry continued to recite the incantation, but the figure seemed to grow stronger with each word spoken. The energy around us intensified, as if the bridge were alive, reacting to what was about to happen. Lucas, Chloe called, her voice cracked by a mix of terror and determination. We need to finish this before she gets us. It was in that moment that I involuntarily looked at Chloe, only to find her distracted. A wave of panic surged through me. Chloe, don't look back, I shouted, but it was too late. She had already turned her head, and the air around us seemed to freeze. The entity, which had previously appeared as just a distant shadow, now advanced towards us, its form becoming more defined and threatening. Curiosity has always been one of your greatest mistakes, hasn't it? It whispered, its smile grotesquely widening. Chloe, come back, I yelled, reaching out my hand, but an invisible force pulled me away from her. The bridge began to tremble beneath our feet, and Chloe's screams echoed in my mind. Henry tried to continue the ritual, but the demonic figure was now standing between us, its threatening presence filling the space. You cannot stop me. Your souls belong to me, it screamed, and I realized that the situation was becoming increasingly desperate. Lucas, help me, Chloe pleaded, and I could see the struggle in her eyes. I tried to concentrate, attempting to remember the words Henry was saying, but despair consumed me. Chloe, don't look! Stay with me! I shouted, but the bridge seemed to stretch infinitely, and my greatest fear was about to come true. The figure moved closer once again, its intent clear, to separate us forever. You cannot have us, I declared, feeling a wave of courage wash over me. We are stronger together. The power of the ritual began to intensify, but the demonic figure was determined to destroy us. The ground trembled again, and I knew time was running out. The battle between light and darkness was about to reach its climax, and all I could do was fight. The demonic figure before me was a vision I could never have imagined. Its malevolent smile seemed to expand, illuminating the darkness around us with a sinister light. Chloe was trapped in its grasp, and the expression of despair on her face cut through me like a knife. Chloe, I shouted, my voice echoing on the bridge, but it felt like the sound was lost in the dense fog. Panic took over me, and my mind raced frantically, searching for a solution. Henry was beside me, trying to complete the ritual, but his voice was tense and hesitant. Lucas, we need to continue. The energy of the bridge is becoming unstable, he shouted. But I couldn't take my eyes off Chloe. She was being pulled into the darkness, and the creature held her tightly. as if draining her. "No, Chloe, I will save you." My voice sounded like a growl, and in a surge of adrenaline, I lunged toward the entity, feeling a fury I had never experienced before. "You will not take her." The words came out of me like a primal scream, charged with a power I didn't know I possessed. The creature hesitated, its red eyes locking onto me as if assessing my worth. "You dare confront the devil?" The entity's voice echoed, deep and rumbling. "You do not know who you are dealing with, mortal." "I know more than you think," I replied, my voice firmer than I felt. "I am a descendant of a guardian of this bridge, and I will not let you destroy what is ours." What I said surprised me. I had never heard stories about being a guardian, but the certainty I felt was unshakable. There was something within me, an ancestral connection that pulsed like a heartbeat. In that moment of revelation, the entity seemed to hesitate, its eyes narrowing as it analyzed my statement. "A descendant of a guardian, you say? That is interesting, but your bravery will not change your fate." As it spoke, the bridge trembled beneath our feet, as if responding to the presence of the entity. The ground contorted, and a sense of despair began to spread around me. "Henry, continue the ritual," I shouted, trying to maintain focus. The power of the ritual could be our only chance. Henry recited ancient words, his voice resonating in the night. The thick fog seemed to stir around us, and the light emanating from us began to intensify. I turned my attention back to Chloe, who was still struggling against the entity's force. "Fight, Chloe! You are stronger than this." I didn't know if she could hear me, but I needed her to feel my presence. The entity let out a deafening scream, and Chloe was pulled even further into the abyss. "Give up, Lucas! You cannot save her!" She was being consumed by the darkness, and I knew I needed to act quickly. "Henry, I will do this," I shouted, unsure of what that meant. "Lucas, no, you can't," he replied, but I was already moving, an uncontrollable impulse guiding me. The bridge trembled even more, and the light emanating from me intensified, filling the space around us. "Chloe, I promise I will bring you back." In a moment of pure determination, I raised my hands and channeled the energy I felt inside me. The light shone brightly, and I felt the connection with the guardians who had come before me. As the light struck the entity, it screamed in agony, its red eyes widening in horror. The bridge was collapsing, and the force of darkness seemed to waver. But just before I could complete the ritual, something unimaginable happened. Chloe was pulled into the darkness, and the bridge began to crumble beneath my feet. The ground opened up, and a blinding light enveloped everything around us. "Lucas!" I heard her voice, a familiar whisper, but so distant. "Lucas, help me!" The desperation in her voice made me tremble, but the light was so intense that I could barely keep my eyes open. As everything collapsed, a question echoed in my mind. Who was Chloe really? And what was her role in this curse? What I didn't know was that the truth was about to be revealed, and my struggle was only just beginning. Explorers of shadows, what we have just witnessed goes beyond human understanding. The story of Lucas and Chloe leaves us with more questions than answers, doesn't it? Think about it. What really happened on that bridge? Did Lucas, upon discovering his guardian lineage, open a door that should have remained closed? And Chloe? Oh, Chloe, what is her true role in this web of mysteries? The Devil's Bridge is not merely a physical structure, my dear friends. It is a portal between worlds, a threshold where the fabric of reality unravels. And now, with Chloe's disappearance, who knows what other entities may have found a breach into our world. But remember, sometimes the true horror isn't in the supernatural, but in what we, as humans, are capable of when faced with the unknown. Lucas's courage, his determination to save Chloe, shows us that even in the face of absolute terror, there is still hope. And you, dear viewer, what would you do if you were in Lucas's shoes? Would you confront the unknown to save someone you love, even if it meant risking your own existence? Share your theories in the comments about what really happened in Silver Creek. Was the curse of the Devil's Bridge broken, or merely transformed into something even more sinister? Remember, sometimes legends have a kernel of truth. The next time you cross an old bridge on a foggy night, think twice before looking back. After all, you never know what might be watching from the shadows. If this journey across the Devil's Bridge made your heart race and your mind spin with dark possibilities, don't keep that chill to yourself. Share this video with your friends, family, or better yet, with that skeptical person who thinks they know all the world's secrets. After all, true terror deserves an audience, doesn't it? And speaking of audience, are you officially part of the Shadow Explorers? If not, now is the perfect time to join us. Just click that subscribe button below. Oh, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss any of our upcoming dives into the unknown. Leave a like on this video. It's like lighting a candle to guide other curious souls here. Each like is a beacon in the darkness, illuminating the path for more shadow explorers to find our refuge. And speaking of exploration, how about we take a look at another mystery that defies logic? In the next video, we'll uncover the secrets behind an old abandoned mansion, where mirrors seem to have a life of their own. Intrigued? Then stay tuned. Remember, darkness is just the absence of light. Or is there something more lurking in the shadows? Until next time, Shadow Explorers, sleep well if you can.